People with ADHD and all mental health are looked down on by the world around them, but we will protect you here. We exist to motivate you, to inspire you, to listen and love the story you want to tell. We are here to understand you and to help you gain the confidence to truly be yourself. And you just might be more powerful than you think you are. Make no mistake, we've got your back. Welcome to Lobow Spark. Something for someone.
Spartans! What is your profession?
Welcome to Season 8 of Lobow Spark. Igniting new sparks. Lobow Spark is proudly sponsored by Feather. Feather your impact with Feather CRM. If you need help managing your online relationships, go to www.feathercrm.io. Lobow Spark has started a fundraising effort for Crisis Text Line. We have a goal of $19 per episode, as $19 supports one person in their time of absolute crisis with their mental health. $19 an episode is the goal, but just $1 would mean so much. If you would like to donate through our fundraiser titled Lauren's Infinity, the link is listed in the episode's description. Lobow Spark is supported by Terri Shubilla, Clair Simpson, Casey Elliot, Sarah Delano, Justin Allingham, Blushing Crafter, Jamie Young, Leo Guinan, and Kirk Hofstrom. These 9 people are the backbone of this podcast. Today's group episode is on ADHD and autism. Most of the friends on my show are ADHD, but there are a few that are also autistic. In this episode, we are educated as to how it feels to have both. Listen to us tell inspiring stories of our autistic friends and get a true glimpse into what autism can be, both the struggles and the advantages. Is it ADHD and autism, or ADHD versus autism? Listen to hear a unique perspective on this. A very special thank you goes out to my great friend Leo Guinan for stepping up to the plate to help us all better understand autism. ADHD friends featured in this episode are Terri Shubilla, Leo Guinan, Kirk Hofstrom, and Blushing Crafter. Together we are something for someone. It's ADHD and autism. So the only autistic person we have in this that knows that they are autistic is Leo. So we are leaning on Morpheus here to... I
am the parent of 2 autistic young adults.
Oh, okay.
But I am not autistic myself. I was tested and it was confirmed I do not have autism.
Okay. Excellent. So we're going to let Leo describe, because I don't know what having autism feels like. I mean, I might, but I don't know that yet. So I want these opinions. I want people to explain what it's like to have both. And Leo, Morpheus, take it away.
Yeah, so I was saying, kind of with the initial lead in, I think like the whole like not knowing how it feels is very appropriate, because the whole concept of alexithymia, and that's hopefully I pronounce it even remotely correctly. But it's really kind of the inability to like understand and process one's own emotions. And so like in the moment, as I feel emotions, I don't always understand exactly what those emotions are. I get a level of intensity, and obviously there's you kind of get the vague like positive or negative like understanding, and you kind of get that energy level. But in terms of being able to actually like put a name to it, not something I'm particularly good with. And so that's like a big chunk of it. And then kind of the another kind of aspect of it that I talked a bit with you about last night is kind of the constant sensory inputs. So, most people typically can tune their senses towards what they want to like focus on and kind of just like block out the rest of it. And essentially, autistic brains tend to just take in all of that sensory data at all times and not be able to filter it out, which is why we tend to have a hard time with sensory overload in a lot of different situations and like certain types of loud environments or sudden loud noises. It's really weird because some autistic people tend to have like an affinity to going to things like clubs because of that sensory overload, and except it's like contained, so it's like so much that it like blocks everything else out. I don't tend to do that, so for me it's a lot of the as my stress level goes up, I become more and more sensitive to like loud noises. So if I'm stressing out particularly like over something, and I'm not always even aware that I am, which is always fun, because again, I'm not always aware of it in the moment. So one of the things I've learned to do is figure out when I am reacting more negatively to like loud noises around me. And obviously with kids, that's a good indicator of like if I start getting a bit snappy, it's like, okay, well, now I'm feeling stressed because this is apparently what I do when I'm stressed. And yeah, it's still a process of understanding exactly what it means, because I didn't even realize that this was a possibility until like approximately 2020, I guess. 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. And yeah, just kind of tracing it back. Another aspect of it is I tend to just assume that things mean literally what they're said. And so if I'm in a conversation, somebody says something, like I take it, rather literally. And obviously there's with context, you can understand like when people are exaggerating or something, but just in the day to day, you don't realize how often people step around topics. They assume a lot of things are like understood when they aren't. And, kind of dealing with that my whole life, you see that like, people will get frustrated if you ask them to like, spell out certain things because they expect them to just be understood. And for a lot of it, it's like, I don't take a lot of these things as a given, which, on one hand does tend to annoy people, but on the other hand, it's actually quite useful when you start realizing that not everything is a given and you actually have a lot more flexibility. There's also the idea of not really feeling the need to adhere to social constructs, because first of all, you tend to not see them unless they are like
that. Yeah.
It's one of those, you don't see them by default. But like typically the experience is like, it depends a lot on how you grew up and how those kind of guidelines were presented to you. And so, I saw a lot of things that I took as a given because essentially they were like, pounded into my head over and over by parents, family, whatever. But yeah, and in a lot of ways, it is very much the opposite of ADHD, although they do tend to exist together at a fairly frequent rate. I've certainly found a lot of people online who, have experienced like that they have both, and I actually think probably even more than realize it, because you'll see a lot of ADHD people like talking about these like ADHD traits that they have, and it's like, yeah, those are actually autistic traits, but there is a stigma around autism. Like people have kind of this like they have this idea of what autism is, again, because most people just don't really know. And that was my whole thing. Like, I'm like, oh, I can't be autistic. Like you think of autism and you kind of think of very specific, traits that, aren't really particularly accurate. you only see kind of the extreme examples, right? Like you see the kids having the meltdowns.
That
you
was
see,
and
that's as a kid, I had what I kind of assumed was like a really bad temper, right? Like, and looking back, a lot of it's just like sensory overload that has to go somewhere. And when people don't understand that and they start like kind of piling on, it just makes it worse. A lot of this is hard because it's like I don't necessarily have the words to describe.
So Leo, can I ask you a question about
for
because
it.
I'm so interested.
I'll just keep rambling
in this. When I'm at a shopping mall, like a mall, okay, any sort of mall that has store upon store upon store, in a row, that makes me crippled, and it's because I can't see the difference in the stores. All I see is wasted time by people that are going into them. Like I can't see it literally, like my vision gets blurred. It overwhelms me so much that I can't be in there for longer than 10 minutes, unless it's Christmas. Christmas, everyone is excited, and the mood of the mall changes. So when I go in there and I see people shopping and being excited about doing something for other people, I am all in. But if it's just casually walking around in this store, in this store, in this store, I can't tell the difference. I walked into a candle store the other day with my wife, and I was like, do you need this charger for your phone? Like I can't, because the electronics store was right next to it. Like I can't do it. Is that what do you? Sorry, this is a very selfish episode, but like.
No, I mean I think that's a fair question.
The sensory overload, I'm only okay if it's for a purpose, but if I feel like it's just casual, I cannot stand that because I think it's fake. Do you?
I get that. So like when it comes to loud noises and everything, like in my apartment, there'd just be some kind of noise, like banging or something. And I'm like, I don't even care. It's not even bothering me, but it's annoying that I don't know where the fuck that's coming from. Like what is creating this noise? I just want to know what it is and why. And then fucking keep going. I don't care. I just need to understand where it's coming from. And like in stores, I think it's just my impatience. I don't know if it's so much the sensory overload. I'm just like, or maybe it's empathetic overload or something because you're like feeling everybody's mood.
I see that too, the empathetic overload. When I see people that are just hanging out and doing nothing that could be better, it cripples me. Like I can't just walk up to some random person but I can't see the stores either.
Like, what are you fucking doing with your life?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's it's like, let me give you some positivity, please. Kirk, Blush, do y'all have any, like, I am lost when it comes to this topic. Like, do y'all know
I recognize a
people
lot
that,
of what Leo's talking about because of my 2 autistic kids who are now adults. We didn't ever, when they grew up, go into stores without a purpose. And it was because of sensory overload. We didn't go on vacations to certain places because, well, no. We would go to my in-laws' places. We would meet my family on each side because too many impressions. But then you have all the you were talking about sensory overload. Even though I am not autistic, I do recognize the, oh my, no, too much. Like noises, they're both distracting, but also just, it can hurt my ears to have the noises around me. I'm hypersensitive to noises. And also to like lights and to colors, and I can't filter.
right.
Yeah, that's the big thing that I think is, I think it does overlap a bit there with the ADHD.
Right.
Case.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there that, with ADHD too, like it can certainly, like, Terri, you were talking about kind of the loud noises, like you have to know what it comes from. And like, for me, that's one of the things, like, it becomes a distraction, and like you can't filter it out. Like you have to understand it, and then like once you understand it, you're kind of easily able to filter it out. And the main difference there for me, at least, like between, you know, a loud noise that is distracting and kind of annoying, is that like as stress levels increase, loud noises then turn painful. Like it's not that they're distracting, it's like that it like, you know, like one of the kids screams or something, and it like hits my brain a certain way that it's like it is painful, and it's kind of a weird kind of pain.
So, but Leo, if I can interject here,
Absolutely.
I know that this is not 4-on-1, but we're kind of looking to you, you know, for an explanation of it or whatever. But I'm telling you right now that, like, if you have autism, I want that fucking shit, because you have the perfect mix of the brilliant brain with the human personality, which is what, God damn it. Anyways,
it could be absolute hell, as you're like,
well, yeah, so could ADHD. So
also need novelty all the time,
right?
That's and so.
But
like, yeah, my brain just wants two different things at all times, like diametrically opposed things.
Right. Kirk, do you have any comments on this? I mean, I know we're all kind of trying, you know, learning from Leo here, but like, in terms of the person that Leo is, like, if he's autistic, give me that shit.
I know. So me and my best friend, super opposites. I'm 14 million miles an hour. He's much more like calculating in how he speaks. I feel like I can operate at a pretty high level at a really high pace. And he can do that in a vacuum. So like when we were like testing, even through the college level, he would just like blow through information at an insane rate. But if you add any social aspects to that rate of like processing started to change, where I would be faster than him at processing those things. And he would tend to be in the background in most social situations, but when he would sort of like step forward to join the conversation, he would always hit a home run with whatever he said. So he's processing slower. The more social it gets, the slower he processes, but he's still operating at that really high level.
That makes sense.
He's just not coming up to bat as often, but when he does, it's still super effective. And whether that was something funny that he's going to say, whether that was something that was, you know, just intellectual, like he's there all the time. It's just the more stuff around him he's having to process, the slower he gets. So I got the best of him, because me and him is just me and him all the time. So I'm seeing his brilliance at a spectacularly high level. I was just talking about this too. Like, do I have any like anything that overlaps at all? I was trying to figure out, like, is there anything that I have in common? A little bit of I take things too literally sometimes, and I don't know if I sort of got that as a safety mechanism, so I can it almost gives myself more time to think, to work around the issue. Like if someone says something and I take it really literally, it's almost so they have to explain it. Like, okay, cool, I have more time to process. Yeah, go ahead and explain this for me. And I'm saying on the outside, like, oh, so what you really mean is this. And they're like, no. This is what I actually meant. I'm making them do that on purpose. So I don't know if I'm using that as like a mechanism to give myself more time and force them to explain what they're saying. And that might just me being like, I don't know, sassy in a conversation. Be like, oh, so what you meant is this exactly how you said it, literally? And they're, you know, and
that's funny.
Yeah, I might just be being a dick, but
that happens.
But that's the one thing that sort of like is in the middle for me. But otherwise, I don't think I have a lot that overlaps. But I think there are some people that are really important to me that have those traits that I tend to be the opposite of.
I guess my biggest question or, I don't know, curiosity is it ADHD versus autism in a battle of who wins? Or is it ADHD plus autism can gel together and use the positives of both to be a superhuman like Leo?
We
You
can.
figured out how.
Right. So
it is hard, but also like it requires you to be aware of both. And again, when you're not aware of either, everything is just really confusing all the time. And I really resonated with what Kirk was saying there, because typically when I go to say something, there is a lot of thought that goes into how I say it, and I've gotten better about this, and not necessarily like worrying too much. And again, it comes down to that whole idea of like assuming that everything is literal. And like as Kirk said, he used that as a way to like make people then like have to explain that. But the kind of having that all the time and not even like necessarily asking people to explain it, it's just like, oh, you assumed that it's literal, and then they get mad because it's not. And so you also learn that there's like certain things you can say and can't say, and that doesn't always make sense, but there's a lot of like processing that you have to go through of like, oh well, how does this come off if I say this? Like, are these people going to be upset with me because I didn't adhere to some unwritten rule that like everybody agrees is there, but I have no idea why? And so that's where masking comes in, right? And so it typically has a lot to do with scripting and kind of figuring out the best way you can appear so that it is the least amount of stress on you. Now, the problem is that takes a shit ton of energy to hold up. And for me, it manifested in like, it really came out as like anxiety and depression, which I then was treated for, and it had to do with when I like entered the workforce, right? So I eventually graduated college, and all of a sudden had a kid on the way, and then I have to go find a job, and so it's like all of a sudden I have to kind of adhere to these social norms that I had. But part of that, like, my sister wanted to be a piercer, so like I just let her like practice, and so I was her portfolio. Actually, got her first job as a piercer.
Fantastic.
And so stuff like that. Like it was always, I didn't really care about like the social like norms or whatever, and I always had kind of these weird tendencies of just doing kind of whatever because I didn't care, and that was fine. But then all of a sudden I'm put into a situation where I have to care because like my family now depends on it, which I now have. And it's all this, like, it's no longer just about me. And so around that time, the anxiety and depression, like, or so I thought it was hit. And there was just a lot of like trying to figure out like, okay, none of these rules that I'm being told make sense. Every time I find something that works for me, they're like, oh, well, it doesn't look right. What do you mean it doesn't look right? Like, I'm hitting all the numbers. I'm doing all this stuff I'm supposed to do.
Fuck that.
Like, I'm, faster than other people. Like, I have to start untangling things and start looking back on my past and saying, like, okay, like, which parts of these were, like, the ADHD, which parts are, like, the autism, and, like, where all the different, like, reactions to external stimuli come in, and, like, really rediscovering who I was and what I enjoy doing and all of that, because it's so easy to get buried.
So Blush, I know you wanted to say something.
Leo was saying learning what was ADHD and what was autism, and actually I will say sometimes you can't divide whether it is one or the other, because both are very, very commonly deal with those issues.
Yeah,
like the overwhelm, totally. Meltdown, totally.
Yeah,
and everybody here
point.
are nodding their heads, right?
That's a great point.
So that overload, but also the being emotional, like emotionally not reactive necessarily, but kind of having a lot of emotions, like big emotions. If you're sad, you're really sad. If you're angry, you're really angry. If
It's the
you're
extremes.
happy, you're bubbling over. Like it's a thing for both autistic people that I know, at least. Many of them I know, actually, and many ADHD people I know.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few things that we will definitely recognize in each
Absolutely.
other.
Absolutely. Kirk,
And I also
I know you're
tend to
dying. Oh,
follow-
sorry, Leo.
Sorry, one thing here, real quick. I was going to say, like, kind of, on that emotional, like, you know, everything is felt higher. So one of the things I found is that I tend to absorb the emotions of people around me and like amplify those. Like it is. So if I am, you know, around someone who is sad, then like I feel that very, very deeply. Like I feel like what they feel, except I feel it like 10 times more because they're feeling that. And so that's always fun when you don't always understand how to like differentiate your emotions between, you know, from those people of the people around you. And so that's something that, again, like I tended to avoid high emotion situations because of that. It's like, because I would just feel all of it.
And yet you came to visit me. So, I mean, that's a high emotional situation. Or Kirk, you desperately were trying to chime in on this.
I didn't want to jump in early because...
No, I know. And I do that, so it's my fault. But Kirk, the floor is yours.
So the longer I was listening to Leo, the more I'm going, oh, this is exactly how my best friend operates. And my best friend responded. So he's sending me, he's like, okay, yeah, I do think I'm on the spectrum. I haven't been officially like diagnosed. He is sending me stuff that we haven't talked about for a decade, maybe 15 years. And he's like, oh yeah, I remember your personality type. Here's my personality type. Here's why we work together. And I'm like, oh, and we're having this whole conversation. Like, what's really interesting is, and like Leo, you're talking about all these, you've like created this like if then what, like tree for yourself. Okay, if I'm in this situation, this is what I do. If I'm in this situation, this is what I do. And like the higher functioning someone is with autism, the more complex they're able to make that like decision tree. And the more layers that they're able to add to it, and the longer they realize they have autism, the better at things they're going to get. What's super interesting is if you take someone who's a genius with autism, and like Leo, it is very obvious you are brilliant. And my best friend is the same way. And I've watched him be able to learn anything, and I mean anything, which is wild. So he's able, like,
it is.
I played soccer in high school and in college, and I was pretty good. He came out to learn soccer. He is not very coordinated at all. He is not an athlete. He started making physical if then what situations in soccer, the same way that he created if then what decision trees in a social situation.
Oh my God.
He started learning how people were moving and basically could tune out the rest of the field. Okay, I'm going to defend this one person. If they do this, then I. If they do, then I. Mathematically, to the point where he was defending people who had been playing for a decade almost at the same level I could. And I've been playing 6-7 years. And they were like, he had just mastered one skill. Here it is, but it's perfect because no matter what someone does, I have all the situations laid out, which was mind-bending to see. Like in 1 year, like we're still not athletic. Is he the fastest guy? Nope. You know, is he going to be super creative in that situation? Yeah, definitely not. But like, is he going to accomplish the task in front of him because he knows exactly what to do in every single situation because he's created this tree? Yep. Then if you add me to that situation, it gets wilder because him and me spent every single day together for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, something like that. He knows if Kirk does X, then he got to the point where he knew when my punchlines were going to be for jokes, and the punchline he could add after it that was making fun of me and continuing the joke at the same time. So he was creating social trees that were complex, especially in the groups that he was familiar with, and around me, to the point where he did not have super high functioning like social skills. If you put him in a social situation with me, I'm gonna be like, I'm the big shiny light bulb. Like I am 1,000 miles an hour talking nonstop, trying to be super clever, trying to be super funny all the time. But he knew how to play off that. So if he started from that situation, he's playing off that as opposed to the entire social situation. And like the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm realizing how smart he was and is.
Yeah.
So
that
like,
is so good, Kirk.
Oh,
like
man,
that is like the most accurate thing I have ever heard in terms of autism. Do you agree? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, no, that's really like
that
how
is
it's out. Like it's you pick up on things
wow.
that you can key in on, and that way, whenever you have someone like to key in on or some situation that you can like fall back on, that then becomes a situation that you can easily deal with. And so kind of figuring out these patterns, again, that you can relate to, it's stuff that then you don't have to worry about. But it's also like why new situations can be very stressful, like especially if you don't have that anchor. And so, you know, having someone like Kirk around is incredibly powerful because you kind of always know that you're going to be able to anchor on something there.
Okay, so can I break into this right now and just give my cure for autism and ADHD is friendship with people that you trust? Can I just do that now? Because you led into it perfect, Kirk. I mean, God damn it. Like, what are we doing here?
But one thing that I will say, though, is one of those disability advocates person here. We don't call it high functioning or low functioning anymore. And that's something that other advocates would very, very loudly, neurodivergent advocates would be very loudly yelling at us for. We don't call it that. We call people basically being on a spectrum. And it's just like, if you met one ADHD person, you met one ADHD person. Same with people who are autistic. There's going to be some things in common, but you just say that people function in different ways.
Right. I will remember that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
yeah, that's absolutely incredible.
You know, high functioning is typically associated with the ability to make money, which is the biggest issue with it.
Yeah, but that's bullshit. High functioning is what we're doing right now. So that's high function.
Yeah, but that's one of the big, you know, it's like you're viewed by your ability to like contribute monetarily to the system.
So,
right,
Leo, when it comes to like you recognizing and realizing that about yourself with the autism and having a hard time processing and identifying emotions and everything, how do you now, like, I know it's probably still something you have to intentionally do, it's probably gotten stronger just because you're getting used to things and you're able to make your if-whens and everything, or if-thens, but like, I'm just thinking how I'm gonna do, you know, keep the people who I believe are autistic in my life.
Yeah, and it's tough because the whole thing, and like just kind of glance, I dropped a link in the chat there. It's like just not having the words to describe it, like, and over time you kind of start to like realize patterns, and again it does always come back to patterns, but and so it just takes like reflection and kind of like, okay, so at this time of heightened emotion or whatever, like what was going on, and you start dissecting it, and you know, it is not always the easiest thing to do. It definitely requires practice. But even just if you can find a way to start talking about it with someone who's not going to hold you to like concrete words and just be willing to explore ideas and concepts, that's very, very helpful, because it's not like a set like, oh well, like how are you feeling? Well, fuck, I don't know, like that's the whole problem, right? Like,
I kind of want to jump in here too. So
Yeah.
go for it.
Perfect.
This is for blushing. So both of your kids, you said, have autism, and after me and my friend were friends for so long, like I picked up on a lot of his cues where he was at socially, and I probably wasn't great at it because I was a teenager and young adult at most. But I'm assuming as a parent, you're seeing those same cues from them and say, okay, cool, if I do this, now they know to either, or they have the choice to do. You were sort of completing that decision tree for them, or like giving them like, okay, here is something that's routine, even if there's a chaotic situation. Okay, cool, everything is out of place, everything's wrong, we're somewhere different, something weird is happening. Did you start to find ways to introduce, like, okay, cool, here's like a little anchor point, here is some normality that you can now go off of, and then after that, or here, actually, go ahead and answer that. Like, did you start to see that in them, and were you able to create points for them to where they could feel safe and, succeed in social situations?
Say going somewhere that isn't your home, regardless of where. But say an example, you're going to visit family. Maybe you were there once when you were like 3 years old. You haven't been there for several years. You don't remember the house. You remember nothing. But you have one thing that you enjoy and that is your safe place. Say it's your Nintendo DS for a kid, right? Well, then you have your headphones, you have Nintendo DS, you have the exact same clothes as you wear at home. And then if your safe space at home is like a corner of the couch with a blanket, well, then we recreate that where we're going, regardless of where. So we did that with my in-laws' place. And they also had a room to go away in, both at my mom's and at my in-laws, and get away from the noise because the impressions was too much, right? But yeah, we definitely learned, and I would say especially I learned a whole lot of the small cues that, okay, things are getting too much, or they're going to get close to too much soon. But also the helping them learn that if this happens, then you can either tell me, we'll go away together, or this is where you can go, physically move yourself away from the situation. So yeah, as a parent, totally, we made sure as they were growing up, all these situations.
That is brilliant. Blushing. That is like
but we
a
also,
bedrock principle of mine is the hiding place. Give them a hiding place.
Yeah, because I need the hiding place. I am
right.
Not good.
We all do.
Big events and crowds and noise and everything. I need the hiding place too, but I can't necessarily always go and get that private hiding place.
Correct.
That's the difference between me, who's an adult, and they as kids, right?
But you have ADHD, you could create a hiding place that will work.
Well, yeah. But I can't create one in the middle of the crowd. I need to get myself out of there too.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being like a parent who has autistic kids, like Leo was talking about how you realize a lot about how you react to things. I learned how the kids reacted, and of course I do also have the background in my education, where I knew a lot about autistic needs, general needs specifically. how could you adapt and things like that. So I had the basically leg up there.
Is
That
there
helped a lot.
medication? Is there medication for autism? Like,
No.
I mean, it's like when you go get diagnosed autistic, is there
No.
like, so there's no Ritalin or Adderall or you know, anything like that that they think might help? There is no prescription?
Nope.
Well, that's fucking ridiculous.
Because we don't know enough about how the brain works.
Yet.
And we don't know, well, actually, they don't have a clue. That's why we need more research, right?
Wow.
But it's some research that has shown that alcohol reduces the sensitivities. And so it's very easy to get into like, it really does the social lubricant aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
There is something there that it makes it easier to interact in social situations. And so that's something I relied on heavily to like get me through social situations, you know, especially like college, things like that. And I still do to some extent, because it acts as kind of a filter, I guess. Like it's very weird in how it works. But I do remember seeing that there was actually research done that shows that it does help. It reduces stress levels in social situations, like, you know, for autistic folks. And it's because of that, like it kind of just filters stuff out in the brain, you know, for better or worse, right? But just the ability to like reduce the amount of stuff coming in is beneficial. Not that I recommend that as the actual like medication for it, but it was interesting. So
it comes with some really downsides too, and alcohol does not help you learn social cues. It does not help you with social interaction like that. It just makes you not that sensitive. I read the same research, the same article, I think.
That's awesome.
And it helps you not care as much about if people misunderstand you or anything. I know a lot of ADHDers who do the exact same things because, yes, that struggle is overlapping in a lot of people.
Also the excuse, right? Like, you know, it gives you the ability to like, you know, oh, well, if I got misunderstood, like, oh, I was drunk, you know. And so like, I mean, seriously though, it becomes the explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Terri, sorry.
So I not diagnosed or anything, but I believe that like my father has autism, maybe autism and ADHD. He's not going to hear this. Never talked to him about anything like that. We don't have that type of relationship, but I could really like recognize it. And I mean, he was an alcoholic when I was growing up. Like that was just, and I would be like, I didn't know. Hi. I didn't know what drunk was when I was little. I just knew like what the glossed over. I knew there was a difference in the eyes. So like if it was, you know, weekend to go there and he came late to pick us up and the glossed over eyes, like had to let mom know before getting in the car. But now, I mean, he still drinks, but not to that level as I guess when he had 2 young daughters and a divorce going on. So I'm guessing that was a big part of it as well, because then there's all the emotions to be processing and all of the responsibilities and whatnot. So I could recognize that now the more I learn. And then I believe self-medicating with alcohol is what caused my father to become an alcoholic when I was a child. And now as an adult and knowing the things I know and learning the things I'm learning, and he's not, he doesn't drink like that anymore. He's gonna slow down, whatever. He's got his comfort levels, his creature comforts and everything. But I can notice when things are overwhelming for him, like in a overload type of way. Like he just wants to go in the woods by a river and sit by it, like that. He would rather deal with whatever nature has to do than like talking to humans that need something or have feelings or didn't, sadly weren't sons, we're daughters. So there's that.
So this has been very educational for me to listen to y'all talk about all of these things. I will say that the bedrock principle to me still is getting together like this is the fucking cure for all these things. I'm sorry.
But you need people who will let you drop the mask. And, a lot of people say, like, oh, you could just be yourself around me.
No.
But then you are yourself, and they're like, not like that.
Right. That's not true, though. That's not true, though. That's why this is so beneficial.
Oh, no, this is huge. And more people do need that.
Yeah.
But, people get burnt because it's like, oh, yeah, no, you can just totally be yourself. And then you're your weird self. And they're just like, not like that.
And then you get fired.
The people who say that don't actually mean it, because
yeah,
I don't think you guys have ever said I don't think this group has ever said those words to try and convince somebody that they could be themselves. It's, I understand what it's like to not be able to be yourself once you feel comfortable enough with me. Like, yep. I know you are safe with me, but there is no convincing you.
Right.
I can't convince you. You have to come to that conclusion on your own.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna sort of explore the idea, even for myself, as far as like, especially if I know someone else with autism, like, okay, cool, can I create safe spaces for them? Can I create something grounding for them? How do I create a simple decision tree for them? And when that happens, I'm going to get to know them that better. Then you start to get the good stuff from them, And I mean, that's obviously going to be beneficial in other social situations, even if someone doesn't have autism. But if you're able to create that space, that's like, okay, cool, here's the simple decision tree, here is something safe, here is like that. I want to be able to be a safe space for pretty much as many people as possible. And I'm sort of already there with anybody that has ADHD. And right after this, I'm literally going to see one of my best friends before they move out of the state who has ADHD. And that's why we've gotten along so well. We should talk about getting her on the podcast, or she'd be amazing.
Recommended we do it.
Oh, yeah, I've already told her. Okay. But if I can start doing the same thing with people who have autism too, we're like, okay, cool. That's something I want to explore for myself, that I think, okay, cool, I can be a better person now because of this. I like that. I'm going to be thinking about that all week.
Spread the fire.
Exactly.
2 minutes apiece. Terri, what are you most proud of?
I am most proud of myself right now for starting a new podcast with the help of you and Leo, not talking me into it, but encouraging me, and then all of your support and being my first interview guest. And it's called Who the Fuck Am I? And we explore who the fuck I am, who the fuck you are, and what the fuck we're doing here.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Kirk, what are you most proud of?
Oh man. I think a lot of it, what's really interesting is I think a lot of this year I've tried to create systems for myself, which made this episode really interesting. And I've tried to become like more organized and like more efficient, and I'm finally starting to get to that place where like I have systems that I have built that no one else has handed me that I'm going to get rid of in 5 seconds. And it's not like just medication based. Like, I'm not going to rely on a medication to do everything for me. Like, I'm still going to do that. But at the same time, if I can start to create systems for myself, take advantage of how I work as a person with ADHD to get things done. Like I think I've built the backbone for that finally. Just a really simple computer program that I have right now that's letting me check things off and deciding if it's worth checking things off or not. Like I don't have to put a checkbox beside everything. Some of those things can just sit there as a reminder so they don't, even though they're not urgent. And then I have things that are urgent for me and things. So I was like, I'm creating a system for myself that's effective. And, I'm trying to incorporate how should I be healthy in that system? Like, can I get these things done in this list if I haven't eaten? Or like, is it more important for me to go outside first? Is it more? So I'm trying to do something very similar to this like decision tree that I was talking about.
But isn't that the whole point, though, Kirk, to develop something that works for you?
Yep.
That's the whole concept of this. Blushing, what are you most proud of?
I am breathing today. I'm
There you
breathing
go.
better because I'm reminding myself of doing so.
Hell yeah.
But I will also say that I am proud of having stood through yet another round of testing. And I will get feedback on ADHD testing and the other testing we did 2 weeks ago on Monday. And I still have another psychiatrist appointment on July 28th. So that is basically one of those maybe. If the conclusion is, yeah, you have ADHD, then we'll discuss psychoeducation and potentially medication. So I'm kind of starting to think that maybe. But I'm also being realistic. So we'll see. But at the same time, I am breathing. I am out of bed, and I went to two medical appointments yesterday and today, and then had even the wherewithal to start sorting through some clothes from a box that's been standing in our house for several years, and even daring to spend energy on trying it on, not exhausting myself. And stopping when I realized that, okay, I'm getting close to that point of, yeah, I should stop now. So I stopped instead of going with the ADHD hyper-focus, but I got to get more of this done. So I said, amazing. No, absolutely not. Put it all down and went to lay on the couch and nap for a little bit. So that's what I did.
If you are not diagnosed with ADHD, Blushing, I'm moving to Norway until you are. Next, Leo, what are you most proud of?
So, I'm most proud of letting go a bit and kind of giving up the need to control outcomes and really just, in a sense, following the dopamine, but it's really about just allowing myself to kind of find the fun in everything I'm doing. And so it's not about meeting deadlines, and I kind of set deadlines for myself and then miss them all the time because interesting things pop up, and I'm allowing myself to explore those as they come up. And it's this idea that I'm working on, actually from our episode, Terri, of fun chaos. And the idea being that it's just doing things that are fun for the sake of being fun, but then like kind of coming back and seeing what results out of that. And I've actually gotten like some interesting results, kind of just experimenting, playing with ideas, and enjoying it. And so it's been fun, even if it is chaos. And it's kind of a fun kind of concept, and may actually end up being the title of a book at some point. We'll see, Terri, but I think it would make a good title, I think. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know. It's fun. So
you're proud of chaotic fun.
I'm proud of chaotic fun.
That's I love it. I am most proud of being friends with y'all. That's it. That is what I am most proud of.
What is your profession?